Film Stash's month of love.
Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell. I hope you guys are enjoying your Valentine's Day today. Maybe you're taking your sweetie out to dinner or whatever, just have a happy Valentine's Day. Today, we're going to be talking about a very unconventional Valentine's movie that just came out. I'm talking about, of course, Hard Eyes. A masked maniac with glowing red eyes returns every Valentine's Day to terrorize unsuspecting couples. And I mean, that's pretty much the hook of it. I mean, there is a couple that's not a couple that's being chased by them, but that's pretty much the premise of the movie. So when looking up some facts for this movie to talk about this week, what I found interesting is that Josh Rubin, a featured writer and actor from College Humor, he actually directed this movie. And according to Rubin, this movie had quite a bit of a time crunch. It was pitched on Valentine's Day 2024, and it went through pre-production, filming, post-production, and marketing in less than a year to be released February 7th. I mean, just that pressure alone and to be on that tight of a time crunch, like, that's gotta be crazy. But then on top of that, what I find interesting too is that this movie takes place in Seattle, but it was filmed in New Zealand. Which, if you live in Seattle, I bet it's probably super obvious that it wasn't actually filmed in Seattle, but considering that I live in like, it's not really noticeable to me. Before we dive right into this review, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Any help with this video or with this channel, it would be greatly appreciated. And now, let's dive right into the stash. If I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't really that crazy about this movie. Like, I went in with an open mind, because I like scary movies, I like slashers, but coming out of it, I wasn't left with much of an impact, but there were things I liked about it for sure. Like, the leads of this movie I thought were very likable. Mason Gooding, who I've seen in the last two Scream movies, like, he continues to be charming and likable in this movie. And I haven't seen much of Olivia Holt in many other movies or whatnot, but she was just fine in this one. Like, she was likable enough. But for the most part, these leads were fine. While there isn't a lot of gore in this slasher movie, what we do get is a lot of fun. Like, there are some creative kills in this thing that just make me squirm in my seat. Like, some of it's like, oh my god. The biggest thing that I was super excited for, any movie that deals with horror or slashers, that they incorporate the gimmick of, hey, let's set it during a different holiday. We have a Killer Leprechaun on St. Patty's Day. We have Uncle Sam on the 4th of July. Killer Santa, which that one actually has gone beyond the horror genre. But the point is that I think the potential to have a Valentine's Day killer, that's a lot of fun. That could be a lot of fun for a horror movies. Just having, oh, they incorporate love and the commercialism of Valentine's Day. How can we make that into something that is terrifying but exciting for audiences? While I wasn't as crazy about the slasher, I love the mask. I love the glowy hard eyes. Like, I think that mask, if we had like a much better killer in this movie, I think that mask would easily be iconic, and I think the killer would be iconic too. But that's where we dive right into the mix. This movie, it's two genres squeezed together. It's horror and romantic comedy. Two things that normally don't go together, but I think with proper writing, you can make something great out of it. And while horror itself is subjective, basic like scares and thrills, that could be easily achieved with any type of budget. But romance itself, it's a little harder to sell. The couple is the main crux of the movie, and whether they get together or not is what draws you in as well. A lot is riding on them. They just don't have chemistry. Like, they seem like they would be better friends than an actual couple just based off of how they interact with each other. I understand what some people would say where it's like, oh, well, it's a Hallmark type movie with a slasher in the background. You're not supposed to take that seriously. And you're right, I don't. I'm very well aware of like what this movie is trying to be, and in some aspects I think it succeeds and others it falls short. But considering that we're supposed to be with this couple and root for them to not only escape but to get together by the very end, they just aren't convincing together. That's a big problem. But sometimes this movie, it uses too modern a slang, like in inappropriate places, to where it just feels too forced, and then it will use romantic comedy cliches to where I feel like it's too cringy beyond a self-aware point sometimes. You're just including this just because you think this is what young people like. This isn't like put in appropriately. But now that I know that Josh Rubin from College Humor directed it, and the writers of Happy Death Day and Freaky wrote it, like that team together collaborating, like I debate whether the cringier aspects of like the script were intentional or not. Huh? You know what that means, right? I mean, you've been subscribed to this channel for a while. I think you would know what this means. That means it's time for intermission! Yay! I'm recording this a bit before Valentine's Day. I don't really have any Valentine's candy, so today I'm gonna go with some leftover Christmas candy. So we're gonna try a Kit Kat first. Love me a Kit Kat. That's like an S tier candy. I would give that a 9 out of 10. And next we have the Reese's Take 5. The peanut butter's good, the caramel's good. I mean, this is good, but I would probably just eat a normal Reese's. That I would give that a 7 out of 10. That's pretty good. Now, diving into the negatives. Horror, particularly slasher films, it's not the best genre quality-wise. Like, you have to go through a lot of garbage, but when the slasher genre hits right, it hits right. It hits good. This is just another meh slasher with some pretty decent kills. And outside of the heart on the mask, or this killer targeting couples on Valentine's Day, there isn't really much else that this killer does that makes him stand apart from other slashers. Like, he's on the same level as the fucking fisherman from I Know What You Did Last Summer, where, like, they're intimidating in the moment, but then if you really, like, step back and think about it, this isn't as special. This hard-eyes killer is not as special as any of these other things, other than it has hearts on its eyes. Like in the pantheon of killers, it's not as memorable. And this film, it wears its horror influences right on its sleeve. Like, for example, a lot of people say that Psycho was the first slasher movie, and so many films over the years have paid homage to this movie from Alfred Hitchcock. This movie, the score, it's pretty much the first violin half of Psycho. I mean, it's not as egregious as when the Re-Animator used the score, but beyond that, like, you could tell. Another influence that this movie took from another horror film, it actually would be a spoiler. Here's a quick spoiler warning right here. Alright, you clicked away or fast forwarded through it. Alright, cool. This movie tries to be a whodunit, kind of like the Scream movies. There's a mystery aspect where it's like, who's behind the mask? And they do set up some red herrings. Not enough red herrings, by the way, but they do set up enough red herrings where in the back of your mind you're thinking, is this going to be a whodunit? And besides our two leads of Mason Gooding and Olivia Holt, like, this is pretty much a cast of background actors, or actors who don't appear in as much work. They're smaller actors. But then, randomly in the movie, you have Jordana Brewster from the Fast and Furious franchise play a cop. Whenever you see what your cast is like in terms of like their profile, and then you have two actors who are the love interest, and then one actress from a very big franchise to this day, you kind of narrowed down the whodunit aspect. And in my mind, as soon as she popped out of that car, I was like, that's her. She's the killer. Fast forward to the end, she's the killer. Not only is she the killer, but the other obvious red herring in the movie ends up being the killer too, the janitor from the police precinct. And they tried to do a Scream type ending, exposition and all. And look, I love me a good Scream exposition ending. But whenever you did this ending when the movie just felt like it was over, it just felt like it dragged on. It felt like it dragged on when it didn't need to. It's like the movie was done. I had a decent enough time. Why is this dragging on? When I saw that they were gonna just do the Scream ending again, I initially wasn't deterred because I thought, okay, they can't just rip off the Scream ending. They gotta add something to it. And my thought was gonna be, okay, doing the Scream ending would be kind of basic at this point, so they're gonna do something crazy where the tables get turned, the couple kills the killers, and this time around, they pick up the mantle and they become the new Valentine's Day killers. Oh my god, that would be crazy. They didn't do that. They just did the typical Scream ending with, I'll admit, some pretty gnarly kills, but it's just been there, done that. To wrap things up here, I do think that this movie, it does have enough merits. There is some fun to be had with this thing. There's enough gore and squeamish moments that will make you want to maybe take your friends out to this thing late at night. Like, there's plenty of fun with that. But as a slasher movie, like, once you've seen it once, it's done. It's disposable. That's it. Which is a shame, really, because I thought this premise could have been pretty fun, but it's what it is. Maybe I put too much hope into this thing, but I would give it about a 5 out of 10. For this week's recommendation, I think it would be more appropriate to recommend the movies that these writers have done before, like Happy Death Day or Freaky. Or, honestly, if you want to just go for the Valentine's Day aesthetic, you could go with My Bloody Valentine, either the original or the remake. I think considering what this movie tried to do and that it was mostly inspired by Scream, I'd say just watch the Scream movies. Like, the Scream movies are pretty much good. This movie, it tried to do what Scream has done in the past, but not as well. Well, that's all the time we have for today here on Film Stash. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Valentine's Day. My name is Douglas Campbell, and if you excuse me, I gotta add to the stash.